We have reached a break in Chicago Bears training camp. 10 practices in to training camp. We have a chance to zoom out, do a little progress report on where the Bears are, where they're headed as the regular season nears, and more importantly, the preseason arrives. The Bears against the Chiefs Saturday at Soldier Field. That's Dionne Miller over there. I'm Dan Wiederer. We're here to talk about it all. Dionne, how you doing?
Dan, we just went through our last weekend without football until 2023. How are you feeling about that?
It's going to be quite a ride. We're going to have a lot ahead of us and a lot to watch. And I think it's going to be fun to get this thing going, to get on the roller coaster, right? And right now it's that point where the roller coaster is just going up, right? And it's just kind of that slow anticipation for the next 4 weeks on, when are we going to get to the top? And then all the fun begins.
I know. Well, and at this point, we still have the best rides in the league because we don't know what everybody else is looking like. And we only have the Bears. And I will say, from 2 weeks ago to now, I feel differently. Now, do I think that is going to translate into more victories? I don't know. But do I feel differently about I feel very much on board with the direction they're trying to go. Much more so than I did when we first met with Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus to start camp. You
say differently. It sounds like you mean differently in a good way.
I think so. I really do. I mean, we'll get into some of this, but just the tone of the conversation, the business-like approach of Flus, and then also the fact that his players are echoing everything he says lends me to believe there is a level of buy-in that is there that I'm not sure I saw this early with the last 4 new head coaches that I've been through. So I'm hopeful, I guess, that he's getting his message across, and this is a group that is kind of like, all right, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And I like that approach.
My opinion is that the buy-in is easy to get, difficult to retain, right? Yeah. And it's difficult to retain once the games start being played and once the results start showing up in a way that your outside world starts grading you on everything you do. I gave you a homework assignment here that we're going to go through here. Just to kind of give us some categories to kind of sum up what we've seen through the first 10 practices of camp and where things are going. So let's kick it off with the number 1 category that we have, which is the most notable storyline.
Let me just say this. First of all, I got this homework assignment. Like, I missed it when it originally came in. So when I saw it, was roughly 26 minutes before we were supposed to log on.
Okay. Just like you used to do in college with final exams. It was a last-minute cram session, and then you'll see what you can do with it.
I mean, we'll just see what I retained, right?
But listen, you've been studying all semester. You have the information in the back of your head. This should be second nature to you, right? Just like it should be eventually for Justin Fields knowing the playbook. You should know what you're talking about and throw it out there. But so I'll start to give you an extra 90 seconds to think about what you think is the most notable storyline. I'm going to go with maybe not the most obvious one, but I'm just going to say that Roquan Smith's lingering hold in is for me the most notable storyline because this is one of the players that has a chance to accelerate your rebuilding timeline. And this is one of the players that hasn't been on the practice field for the first 10 practices of camp. I don't think Roquan is falling crazy far behind in his absorption of the new defense. He's in meetings. He's able to see everything they're doing. I think he'll hit the ground running when he's back. You'll obviously have to make sure you keep an eye on where he is physically when he comes back to make sure he doesn't get hurt right away. But the bigger storyline for me, Dionne, is what exactly is it going to take to get Roquan back? And because we don't know what Roquan's demands are, because we don't know how far the divide is, it's sort of this giant mystery that's just lingering out there in terms of what Roquan needs to be happy, what the Bears are willing to do to make him happy, and how they can meet somewhere in the middle. And the middle being the practice field at Hallis Hall, where Roquan can get back into drills and teamwork and start to become an on-field leader for this team.
It was telling to me that on Sunday when we talked to some of the defensive guys, they mentioned him by name and how engaged he has remained. And I feel like Alan Williams is an easy guy to talk to and to keep a conversation going with. And so I do feel like when they say that he's in the meetings and he's going through stuff and he's remaining that leader, I think that's genuine. And I think what we know of Roquan, that is the grand mystery, though. What is it going to take to meet in the middle with a young GM who does want you on the team, but knows your value or thinks he knows your value, and it's just going to be interesting. I didn't know that it would take this long. So that definitely is an intriguing storyline. The obvious other intriguing storyline is, of course, Tevin Jenkins, but here's the thing that gets me about this whole situation. He returns to practice. He looked miserable on Saturday when he was talking to the media. I was like, okay, tell us you don't want to be here without telling us you don't want to be here, sir. Like, he was just miserable. It was not himself. But here's the other thing. We are spending a lot of time worrying about a guy that I don't even think is going to make a difference. I really don't. And I think that's why it's intriguing to me, because it continues to be this like buzz around an offensive line that frankly doesn't need him. And thank you, Tevin, for showing us that we can move forward without you. I think that's what he's done through these first couple of weeks of training camp. So what that means for his future, I don't know. It's interesting to keep tabs on. I argue the more intriguing storyline continues to be Justin Fields. I'd much rather talk about the quarterback than I would about some guy who might be in front of him. And I feel like that I say Justin is intriguing to me because we've seen already a roller coaster of his emotions, right? Like the first week or two, he was really like engaged and right there and on almost on the edge of his seat, like excited to talk about things. And then we heard him talk to Peter King this week about Luke Getsy as this mastermind and whatever. But the last time he addressed the local media, he also looked like, tell me you don't want to be here without telling me you don't want to be here. He was not engaged and he was just kind of flat. And I just, for a guy who is frankly trying to take over an offense, that's where it's, and a team, it's intriguing to me to see how that continues to develop, and based on what we've seen already through these first couple of weeks.
Let me give you a quick thought on Tevin before I talk about Justin for a second. And it's just that you're right in that he's no longer part of the plans, right? And we've seen them try to solidify both tackle positions, one with third-day rookie draft pick Braxton Jones at left tackle, getting a long, hard look there. And it seems like they are intent on giving him an opportunity to win that week one job. You obviously have Riley Reif and Larry Borum on the other side, with Reif seemingly going to be your presumed week one starter over there. And so Tevin's storyline is almost only relevant because of what they gave up in 2021 to draft him, right? And so it's the trade up, and it's the pick you used on him in the second round to get him. And now you're saying, boy, this is one of those things where now Ryan Poles has to go rewrite one of Ryan Pace's wrongs. And there's a lot of those to rewrite. And you have to try to find some guys from Ryan Pace's tenure that you can build with and build around, as many as possible, ideally. But it's clear that when we get into week one, that the 53-man roster will probably be maybe less than half of guys who even have any connection to Ryan Pace, which is incredible, given that he was just holding this job 8 months ago, right? 7 months ago. And that's a head scratching, right?
Can we revisit that? We need to revisit that.
No question. No question. As far as Justin goes, I think I'm not one to get too worked up about press conference demeanor, as much as I am noting what you noted, in that Justin has to understand going forward that he is the face and the voice of so many things that happen at Hallis Hall. And if you feel confident about the offense, you have to project that. And that means projecting it when you meet with the media, because you have to let the outside world know, hey, we're in a good place. To your point, the last time he met, it felt like a frustrated press conference, that he realizes they're not in the place that he wants them to be. He realizes they're a long way from being in the place that he wants them to be. And so that was almost a tell from a young player, and saying, listen, all these reports you're hearing about the offense being shaky, they're legit, and it's bothering me right now because we can't get enough things solidified and in place and momentum built to get this thing humming in the right direction. We also heard from Luke Getsy, I think the same day, or maybe it was the day before, in saying that these next 3 weeks for Justin were going to be huge because things need to click, and he has to be the leader of things clicking. And so it was almost an open request and an open demand from the coordinator to say, brother, this is your ship now. You got the steering wheel. We need you to get humming with this thing, even though there's a lot of stuff that's unstable around you.
Guide us in the right direction. We need to know that you're there and doing that, and being that. You're so telling what you just said, being the face and the voice of a rebuilding team is pressure. There is pressure to that, not to mention that this team has been looking for a leader like that forever, right? Blindly walking through the dark, grabbing anybody they can grab. And now they're asking Justin to be that guy. Okay, now it's your turn. You came into camp with all that confidence. Show us on the field. All right, what's our next assignment?
Next category is, give me something you're excited about. Anything you're excited about. You've had 10 practices to get excited.
You know what I'm excited? Okay. I wrote down a bunch of things that I'm excited about.
That's good.
Which is good. I'm gonna, from my heart, I'm excited about Michael Schofield and his energy and the way that he has dreamt of this moment, and knowing Kendall, his wife, as long as I have. I mean, I talked to them during the pandemic when he was looking for a team. And I was like, oh, it'd be so cool with the Bears. And that was what, 2 years ago. Yeah. And even then his excitement, his genuine, like, oh, that'd be a dream. And now to be living it, I feel like I'm excited about that just because he's one of 4 guys on this team that grew up cheering for the Bears, and seeing him kind of shine in that role. And when he talks to the media, it's refreshing. Like, I'm excited about that. And then to know that he's getting those reps with the O-line and he brings in that experience and he understands running this offense and the patience that comes with that. I'm excited about him, and I'm excited about his role on the team.
One of those new guys that we're getting to know, right? And it's fun when there's a lot of new faces in here. Tell me if you agree with this. He has some facial mannerisms that remind me of Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah. Did I just know that? Yes.
I was looking at him the other day, being like, who does he remind me of? And then it clicked after he was on the podium. I'm like, there's some Rizzo to the way he looks and the way the expression. So, all right, we're on the same page with that. And I do think it's exciting for him to have this opportunity and to embrace it the way he does. I'll tell you that I'm excited about the starting safeties right now, because you've got a veteran in Eddie Jackson who seems to have found a comfort level and a sort of a mental peace, and he's openly talked about just feeling like he's ready to do some things differently in 2022 than he did in 21 and 20 in terms of being able to make plays and also just be a leader for this team, right? And feeling energized by the work habits that have been put in place within him and around him by, as you mentioned at the outset, Matt Eberflus and his coaching staff and the demands they've made. And the defense really feels like they're building momentum right now, just given their collective effort, right? And their collective buy-in to practicing hard and holding each other accountable and having standards. Well, now you pair Eddie with a rookie, and not only a rookie, but a rookie who he told, hey, Jaquan Brisker, if you ever have any questions, please come talk to me and I'll be happy to answer them. And Jaquan said, cool, how's 10 minutes from now? I'll come to your house and we'll go watch film and you can answer questions. And so the pairing of those two guys has been really cool. And then to watch Jaquan Brisker as a rookie come in here, really just put a stranglehold on the starting job and say, I'm not only going to start for you as a rookie, I'm going to make plays and I'm going to be aggressive and I'm going to be fearless. And there's going to be a lot more of my jerseys in the stands here real soon because of the way I play and because of the Chicago-like mentality that I bring to the football field. The pairing of those two guys right now, I think, is something that fans on the outside should be pretty excited about.
And the change in Eddie Jackson is noticeable. The change in the way that he talks to us. And I don't know that we'll ever know what all was going on last year or the last couple of seasons where he wasn't, especially last season, where he just wasn't performing at the level we knew and even he knew he could. Something clearly was going on. I don't know if that'll ever be revealed, but it's definitely different now that he's kind of recognized that he's the leader. I mean, I loved when he was like, they were like, when did you know that you needed to be a voice in the locker room? He's like, yeah, well, they traded everybody. Everybody left.
Like, when I looked around and all the guys that used to lead were gone, right? Like
it was so natural. But I think there's something to be said about him coming in and taking kind of ownership of that and realizing he's a vet now and it's on him and wanting kind of to be in that role. I even watching like film of what we've shot at practices or whatever, and seeing the way that he hustles and seeing the way that he is actually putting in the work on the field, it seems different. So I'm with you on that. That's really great. And I mean, who wouldn't love a Kwani B jersey? Like, hello, I'm in.
I'm telling you, Kwani B is going to be a fast fan favorite here by the time we get into October, November. Okay, I'll start off with the thing I'm concerned about and give you another couple seconds to think about yours. But I'm concerned right now about the wide receivers, because not only did the Bears come into training camp with a group that was unproven and sort of a hodgepodge of young, hungry newcomers and veteran cast-offs looking for career reboots, but now they've got this slew of injuries, right? We saw N'Keal Harry on Saturday suffer what appears to be a very significant ankle injury that will keep him out into the regular season. Velus Jones still out with a soft tissue injury. Byron Pringle has a quadriceps issue that Matt Eberflus openly volunteered was going to keep him out for much of August, if not beyond. You also have Dante Pettis out. Velus Jones, I think I mentioned already. And so you have not only an unstable core of receivers, but now a injured unstable core of receivers. And when we're talking about Justin's development and the catalyst to helping him get on the right track, the offensive line and the receiving core are paramount to that. Right now, neither one of those things is stable. Right. And it's a reason why there are a lot of periods ending or a lot of plays ending where Justin's tucking the ball and taking off and running for his life because no one's open and the protection isn't good enough. Uh-oh.
You're so correct, Dan. So correct. That was exactly what I was going to worry about as well, because we came into this season thinking, all right, is Darnell Mooney the number one, or he is by default? And they brought all these new guys in, and now they're not even out there. And that is very much a concern for this team that needs to get that offense going downfield and getting Justin connected with these guys, and they're not there. I'm really disappointed about N'Keal Harry, because of the way that he came into camp and was so ready for a fresh start and something different. And I'm really bummed that this is going to kind of slow that for him. He was praised immediately for his size and his build and his strength, and what he was drafted because that highly, because they know what he is capable of doing. And now he was going to have a chance to actually be that guy. And so I'm bummed for him. I'm hoping it's not really, I mean, I'm hoping he gets to get back on the field, right? Like it's something that he can recover from and move out there. But it's very disconcerting to see that many receivers out this early into camp, and knowing how valuable that their connection is going to be with Justin, are going to need to be. That is definitely my highest level of concern. Across the board, though, there were a lot of guys who didn't practice on Sunday, and
15, including Jaquan. There were 15 guys who weren't able to practice, and that's a byproduct of practicing hard. And that Matt Eberflus knew coming in that was going to be some of what you were going to deal with if you were going to be so intent on running practices your way and setting a standard and holding people accountable. This comes with it. Now you got to figure out ways to get the important guys healthy enough to be ready for you in week one. It looks like Harry won't be on that list. Maybe Pringle will be. And so where do we go from there, right? So that's a concern that we both agree on. We
do agree on that. And it's going to take a certain level of patience too. I mean, I mentioned a little bit about what Schofield said about this offense, and knowing that even when he was in it before, it took 4 weeks of the regular season to kind of hit their stride. This is a Bears team that's going to reflect that too, I think. And especially not having those guys out there right away, it's just going to take a little bit more time. Pack your patience, Dan.
All right. So what are you keeping an eye on here as we get into the second portion of training camp?
Okay. Well, Kyler Gordon, I'm keeping an eye on why is he not out there, and what's happening there. And because I thought when he first came into camp, the first couple practices, in pads, out of pads, whatever, his athleticism and flexibility jump off the field. I mean, just don't laugh. Just the way he stretches, you're like, okay, he's clearly got a different background than a lot.
He's a dancer.
He's a dancer. You can tell the way he runs and strides, like all those things. So where's he at? Because I was really jazzed about both him and Jaquan, the way that they showed up and the impact they were immediately making. So I'm concerned that he's not out there right now, because as a rookie, he needs that experience, right? He needs to be on the field. He needs more reps. He needs all of those things. And it's just mysterious to me. And here's the thing we're learning about this particular regime is when they tell you something, they are going to repeat it again and again, right? So like with Tevin, well, he's got an injury working with trainers. Okay, what? Same with, well, Roquan's on PUP. He's just on PUP. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're not going to get a lot, even though we keep asking about Kyler and exactly what's
right. Like we don't know what he's dealing with right now.
No
this
idea.
Is the second consecutive category where we agree and see eye to eye on this, because Kyler Gordon is on my paper here with exclamation points, because it's not just missing the 3 practices this week. Is that a big deal? It's that he missed time in the spring too, mini camp and into the OTAs with some things that were lingering. And so now you say, is he going to come into his NFL career with an injury-prone label? We don't know. Is this a hamstring, right? Like, is this a hamstring pull? Is it a hamstring strain? Is it, and as a corner, no matter how good your athleticism and your dance moves are and the things that you do and how fluid you are, you better be able to have use of all your muscles in your legs to be able to cover elite receivers in the NFL and go inside in the slot and do the things that they want Kyler Gordon to do. And so, yes, keeping an eye on that into this week. Obviously, the Bears have a Family Fest practice on Tuesday, 2 more camp practices on Wednesday and Thursday at House Hall, and then right into the Chiefs game on Saturday. And so if Kyler Gordon doesn't get more than 1 practice in, well, now maybe he doesn't get that first preseason game against the Chiefs. And now we're elevating the concern on the keep an eye on level and trying to figure out exactly where that thing heads, because they're counting on him. And also, just to go on top of that, Tavon Young was out of practice on Sunday. You wound up with an undrafted rookie out of Ole Miss, Jalen Jones, taking snaps in the nickel. Thomas Graham's still out. You got a lot of different options that they can use in the slot corner that are all injured right now. And so now it's troubleshooting mode for Flus and Alan Williams. All right.
Kyler Gordon was on social media on Sunday. So
I mean, he's in practice and he's in good spirits and all those things are great, but you better be healthy enough to be able to make a difference when the regular season begins.
Correct.
You got a pleasant surprise for us?
Okay, so do I have a pleasant surprise? Yes, I do have a pleasant surprise. David Montgomery.
Okay.
the change in him is so noticeable. Now, I'm going to get so excited about somebody who's found Jesus, right? Like I'm going to be really excited about that. And I am. But he is a different guy. And listening to the way that he talks and kind of he has a very different perspective, and you can see it, you notice it. He was always one of those guys that we would talk to and his answers would be this long, right? And you were like, oh my gosh, I can't talk to him. And it was so different this week when he came in there and kind of just the way he's owning where he's at in his game and what he wants to do and being a part of this team and moving everybody forward. I want to win games. That was a pleasant surprise to me, just the change in him. And I'm excited to see how that may translate onto the field for him this season. But he seems like he has in such a good headspace. And for going through a first couple of seasons that have been like this, I think that's going to be really powerful.
I think we've talked a lot about his seriousness and his drive and almost beaten that into the ground over his first 3 years here. And I think he understands that with that comes a sort of a self-induced pressure. And it sounded like talking to him the other day that he's trying to alleviate some of the self-induced pressure and not worrying about a contract year and not worrying about what happens if this regime doesn't believe in me and not worrying about what if this offense isn't any good and the running game never gets going, and just kind of trying to just take some of that mental strain off his plate and get himself in that headspace that you mentioned to be able to just do what he can do on a daily basis to be productive. We'll see how he channels that. As someone who lives in the chamber of self-induced pressure, it's not an easy thing to alleviate. And we'll see if David's able to successfully find his way out of that. Then I'll go ask him for some advice and I'll get out of my own head and I'll relay some tips to you if that helps. My pleasant surprise is Justin Jones, who is one of these free agent signings that didn't create major headlines across the NFL, but has come in here and shown that he plays the brand of football that Matt Eberflus and Alan Williams want to play, that he can be productive up front in generating penetration, that he can be a guy who can help you as a run stopper, can generate pass rush. He has been playing with a motor that I think has been notable and contagious and is going to be noticeable when the season starts. Obviously, playing in the trenches like that, you don't always get the credit you deserve for some of your contributions, but that's a guy that's worth watching when the season begins, because I think he is a guy that can set a tone for this defense, which is trying to set a tone for the rest of the football team. So Justin Jones is my pleasant surprise. All right.
Love it.
We got one more category, and then we get out of here. The preseason game, as we mentioned, Saturday at Soldier Field at noon. What is where does your spotlight go when that game begins?
I thought about this and I was like, okay, the starters need reps. So I mean, however many they get, that's great. I guess I look at the secondary. I look at what Jaquan Brisker is going to be able to do, or the energy he brings to that preseason opportunity, and then the depth behind them. I think that's what I look for in the preseason games. I get excited for about 10 minutes and then I realize, wait, this is not real football. I tried to watch the Hall of Fame game. I really genuinely did. And it was, I mean, scratch my eyes out. It was awful.
Me and my son made it through 2 series and it was just like,
I was like, I'm done.
Back to baseball.
Back to baseball. Exactly. But I am excited to see, I'm like the young guys getting their first chance to whatever that looks like, whether they're the starting rookies or even the ones that are going to be in the trenches or in the depth chart or whatever. That's, I guess, what I'm looking for. I will say that this week it was obvious to me that Matt Eberflus has the attention of the room, right? And definitely has a pulse on his team. And hearing Alan Williams say that, and the guys who came from Indy who know Eberflus, singing his praises, I kind of want to notice, I kind of want to pay attention to that, I guess, through this first preseason game, because it's the first for him too. And so I want to keep an eye on how he monitors his team through a game that it doesn't matter, but for a team that needs to take such a giant step is consequential, right? Like it does. You want to see something that's encouraging.
See, this is a really good point, because even if it is just Trevor Siemian leading you on a 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, there are clock management issues that a first-time head coach has to deal with and practice, right? In real situations, you have to practice. How are you going to use your timeouts? How are you going to communicate with your staff? How are you going to get the team positioned to make split-second decisions in a quick, rapid pace? And so there are a lot of game management things that Matt has never had to deal with that will be a first-time thing for him Saturday, but with no pressure, right? It's just it's like going in the batting cages and taking some rips, see if you can connect, see if you can correct some things. So that's a really good one to keep an eye on.
No pressure? I mean, isn't the guy he replaced on the other side of the field? I mean, that's a little pressure.
Nah, I mean, really? No, I mean, Yeah, and I guess neither of us is talking about Matt Nagy's untriumphant return to Soldier Field. Our spotlight's not going there on Saturday. That's unfortunate.
I might be like, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out.
I've got two things that I'm putting my spotlight on Saturday. Remember how excited we were when we checked back into training camp in 2021, and we were on this very set saying, we get to talk to players in person. Remember? It was like, oh my God, the Zoom era is over. They're actually going to be sitting 15 feet from us, and we're going to be able to talk to them. Well, we go one step further back toward the old reality on Saturday with the locker room opening up after the game. Have not been in a locker room since the Bears season finale in 2019. It is crazy to process that in the back of your head. I'm not expecting a ton to come out of the locker room on Saturday after the game, but just the opportunity to get in there, figure out where everybody's stalls are, have a couple of conversations here and there. I'm excited. It's like a genuine excitement to go back to doing the job the way it was meant to be done. And hopefully this is just the start of a bunch of things to come.
Oh, flex that muscle, Dan. That's so fun. It has been forever. I know when we first got back into baseball clubhouses, that was interesting too. It felt weird the first time, and then it was like, oh, it's like we were never gone, right? And I think that is what this is going to be like, which is awesome. But to your point, as we're getting to know a new team, as we're getting to know some of these players, there's still players on that Bears roster that we have never interviewed like this, right? Like never had one-on-one conversations with so many of those guys. So that is going to change the way that we do our job and the way we bring fans closer and the way we get to know these guys a little bit more. And kind of know where their mental state is and know how they operate and who they hang out with, and just observe, if nothing else, just observe the interactions between with this group. And Eberflus saying, back in OTAs, what does he think is the one thing that is, really solid about the team? And he said the culture. Well, right now that's just words. I want to see it. I want to see it all in front of me, and how it looks in the locker room, and how Justin's interacting with guys, and how they're responding to him. And I just think that's a reason to be excited, Dan.
We won't get into the House Hall locker room until the Monday, I think, of week 1, which is in September. It's going to be really interesting to walk back in that locker room in Lake Forest and see how many guys were there the last time we were there. It's going to be the Eddie Jackson and the Cody Whitehairs. And, I don't even remember if Cairo Santos was in the locker room at the end of 2019. It's going to be certainly less than a dozen, maybe less than a half dozen guys.
I'm going to say less than 10, easily less than 10.
It's going to be really interesting on that day. So here's the other thing, and you brought this up earlier, and we'll make this quick, but the Michael Schofield storyline is not unique because there are a lot of local products going out in a Bears uniform on Saturday for the first time and playing a game in a stadium for a team that they grew up watching. You've got Jack Sanborn, linebacker from Wisconsin, who played his high school ball in Lake Zurich, right? You've got James O'Shaughnessy, a tight end, currently hurt. Hopefully he gets back in time to play in this game, but he's from Naperville. You've got Micah Treadway, an undrafted rookie, 7 years removed from high school, went to Notre Dame and Minnesota, and now he's a Chicago Bear from Bolingbrook, getting a chance to play on that stage. Obviously, Cole Kmet's done this before for the last couple of years, but there's all these guys now that have Doug Kramer, right? The rookie out of Illinois from the south suburbs. And so there's an energy that those guys bring and an energy that they have about this opportunity, which is cool to at least take a pulse on as they go into this kind of monumental moment in their football journeys on Saturday.
It's clearly, I love me some Michael Schofield, but when he said he's like pulling up to House Hall, it was like I got drafted all over again. Yeah, because this is the dream, right? This is what you're pretending you're doing in the backyard and in Illinois, watching the Bears on TV and thinking, wow, if I could play for my own, like for that team, that would be the dream come true. And it's come true. Like, that's amazing. It's amazing. That's very cool.
It's really cool stuff. So I will be in the press box on Saturday at Soldier Field. We will have a lot more to talk about as the rest of the preseason goes on. Our progress report is here for you to go back and review 2 or 3 times, and you can figure out where the Bears are. And then we'll have more information for you as it goes along. That's Dionne. I'm Dan. Thanks, Dionne. It's always fun.
Oh, it was a blast.